Well, we had talked about how the civil rights movement had changed American society by the images. Another event that changed American society by the images that were put forth was the Vietnam War. And the roots of the Vietnam War go back to the struggle between communism and democracy in Asia. And Ho Chi Minh, who was friendly to communism, fought for independence from France and won that independence from France. And the country began to split into two: pro communist and pro democracy. Eventually, a peace settlement was arranged, very similar to the peace settlement between the communist and democratic Koreas. They divided Vietnam in two: the North being communist, the South um, being democratic. And of course, this was doomed to failure, just like Korea. Next slide. Diem was elected the president of the anti-communist South. Diem's problem was he was extremely unpopular. He did not hold free elections, even though it was demanded that he did hold free elections. And the reason why he said he wasn't going to have free elections, he basically said, well, the North isn't going to have free elections, so we're not going to have free elections. And so he became pretty much a dictator supported by the United States because he was anti-communist. Next slide. For President Kennedy during this time, he was determined to not let the domino effect of communism affect Asia. The domino theory at the time said that if one domino fell, they'd all fall. If one country fell to communism, they'd all fall. And he was determined to stop communism at Vietnam. And he began to send in military advisors to help the South defend itself, up to 16,000 at one point. Well, the problem for the South was that this guy was insanely unpopular. Just to name a few things that he had done. To protest, you can see it's a monk here who had lit themselves on fire in protest of the Diem administration. With the approval of the U.S., because he was corrupt, because it was not really democracy, he was overthrown. And when the military overthrew him, they killed him. Next slide. Lyndon Johnson comes into office after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, which unfortunately we've run out of time and won't be able to talk about. I'm sorry. In the South, there was a growing communist movement led by a group of guerrilla warriors or covert warriors called the Viet Cong. They were given money and aid by the communist North, who was given money and aid by China. And they gained followers because where the corrupt administration of Diem in the South wasn't helping people, the guerrillas that were working in the jungles of South Vietnam, Democratic Vietnam, communist guerrillas down there, they were building schools. They were bringing medicine, and they were helping and bringing food. So they were seen as liberators and helpers. Next slide. So here's what happens when the war breaks out between the North and the South. We thought it would be easy again. The U.S. had better weapons and better technology. Tanks, helicopters, jets, bombers, machine guns. But the Viet Cong, which by and large fought in their pajamas, they knew the land, the jungles, the rivers. They also could hide. They would duck out of Vietnam into nearby Cambodia and Laos, and America did not chase them into those areas. And the local population supported them. The Viet Cong would create these underground cities that you wouldn't even know. As you walked over them on patrol, you wouldn't even know that underneath you was 200 Viet Cong living in tunnels that they had built. It was an amazing system. All right, let's end this part of the lecture.